Elara Kane sat in her quarters, eyes closed, trying to calm her racing thoughts. The presence of the orb aboard the Starship Nova intensified Korrath's influence, and she could feel his excitement pulsing through her mind. She took a deep breath, focusing on the rhythmic hum of the ship's systems to ground herself. In the science lab, Commander Vance, Rylan, Trent, and the science team continued their analysis of the orb. The room was filled with the soft glow of holographic displays and the hum of advanced equipment. The tension was palpable as they tried to uncover the secrets of the ancient artifact. "Commander, the energy readings from the orb are increasing," a science officer reported, his voice tinged with concern. "It's almost as if it's reacting to our presence." Vance frowned, leaning closer to the display. "Keep monitoring it. We need to understand what we're dealing with." Rylan stood beside Vance, his expression serious. "Do you think this could be the key to understanding Korrath's power?" Vance nodded slowly. "It's possible. We need to proceed with caution." As the crew worked, Elara felt a surge of power coursing through her. She opened her eyes, staring at her reflection in the small mirror on the wall. Dark tendrils of energy swirled around her, a constant reminder of the entity she harbored within her. "Use the power, Elara," Korrath's voice echoed in her mind. "Together, we can break free from these confines and seize control." Elara shook her head, her jaw set in determination. "No, I won't let you take over." Korrath's laughter filled her thoughts, dark and sinister. "You cannot resist me forever. Sooner or later, you will succumb." In the cantina, the atmosphere was tense as crew members gathered to discuss the recent discoveries. The news of Jax Carter's infection had spread, and the crew was on edge, uncertain of who might be the next target. "Do you really think we can trust Jax?" one crew member whispered to another. "We have to," the other replied. "But we need to be vigilant. Korrath's influence is spreading, and we can't let it take over the ship." Rylan entered the cantina, his face grim. He approached a group of security personnel, his voice low. "We need to ensure that everyone who was in contact with Jax is monitored closely. Report any unusual behavior immediately." The security team nodded, their expressions serious. They knew the gravity of the situation and the importance of their vigilance. Back in the science lab, the energy readings from the orb continued to rise. The room was filled with a tense silence as the crew watched the displays, their hearts pounding in anticipation. "Commander, the orb is emitting a new frequency," a science officer said, his voice barely above a whisper. Vance's eyes narrowed. "Can you decode it?" The officer nodded, his fingers flying over the controls. "I'm working on it. It might take some time." As they waited, Elara felt a wave of power wash over her. She closed her eyes, focusing on the sensations coursing through her. The dark energy of Korrath swirled around her. "You feel it, don't you?" Korrath's voice was soft, almost seductive. "The power within you. Use it, Elara. Embrace it." Elara gritted her teeth, fighting the urge to give in. "I won't let you win." Korrath's laughter echoed in her mind, dark and menacing. "We shall see." In the command center, the tension was palpable as the crew monitored the situation. Vance stood at the center of the room, his eyes fixed on the displays. "Commander, the signal is becoming clearer," the science officer reported. It's a message." Vance's heart pounded in his his chest. Put it on the main display. The room fell silent as the message played, a distorted voice echoing through the speakers. Bring me the orb. Vance's eyes widened. It's Korrath. Rylan stepped forward, his expression determined. Agreed, I think it may be wise to do the exact opposite. Vance nodded. Agreed. We need to understand the artifact that contained him and the orb. It might shed some light on how to separate him from Jax and Elara. As the crew of the Starship Nova worked tirelessly to uncover the secrets of the ancient artifact and the orb, they knew they were on the brink of a revelation. The fate of their mission and that of their crewmates hung in the balance. They would need all their strength, determination, and courage to face the challenges ahead and to confront the dark force that threatened to consume them all. Elara felt the energy within her growing stronger. She clenched her fists, focusing on maintaining control. Each day, she practiced using her telekinetic abilities in small, controlled ways. She moved objects across the room, lifted heavier weights, and even attempted to manipulate the flow of water from the sink. The more she practiced, the more confident she became in her ability to control Korrath's power. But Korrath was always there, lurking in the back of her mind, whispering temptations. Why do you resist, Elara? Think of what we could accomplish together. You could be the most powerful being in the galaxy. I don't want power, she replied, her voice trembling with anger. I want my life back. Korrath's laughter echoed through her thoughts. Your life was insignificant before I came along. Embrace the power, Elara. Let it consume you. Elara shuddered, shaking her head. She couldn't let him win. She had to find a way to free herself from his influence. In the medical bay, Jax Carter lay unconscious on a medical bed. The ship's medical team worked tirelessly to monitor his condition and search for any signs of Korrath's influence. Dr. Meredith Chen, the chief medical officer, observed the readings on her console, her brow furrowed in concentration. There's definitely something affecting his brain activity, Dr. Chen said, glancing at Commander Vance and Rylan, who stood nearby. It's unlike anything I've ever seen before. Vance crossed his arms, his expression grim. Can you do anything to counteract it? Dr. Chen shook her head. I'm not sure. This entity, it's not like a typical infection or virus. It's something far more complex. Rylan stepped forward, his voice low. We need to find a way to help him. If Korrath is controlling Jax, he could be a danger to the entire crew, just like Elara. Dr. Chen nodded, her expression resolute. I'll do everything I can, but we need more information about this entity. We need to understand how it works. The landing mission. As the crew continued their analysis of the orb, Commander Vance prepared to return to the planet and to investigate the source of the energy readings on the planet. Maybe they could learn more about Korrath's intentions or the artifact he was within. The landing party, including Vance, Rylan, Trent, and a team of security officers, gathered in the ship's hangar, their faces set with determination. We don't know what we're going to find down there, Vance said, addressing the team. But we need to be prepared for anything. Stay alert and stay together. The team nodded, their expressions serious. They boarded the landing craft and strapped themselves in, the hum of the engines filling the cabin. The journey to the planet's surface was smooth, but as they approached, the energy readings grew stronger. The landing craft touched down near the source of the readings and the ruins that housed the orb, and the team disembarked, their boots crunching on the rocky terrain. The air was thick with anticipation as they made their way toward the series of ancient ruins partially buried in the ground. Strange symbols covered the structures, emitting a faint, pulsating glow. "This is it," Vance said, his voice low. "Let's proceed with caution. You see something, mention it." As they entered the ruins, the atmosphere grew tense. The walls were covered in more of the strange symbols, and the energy readings were off the charts. In the center of the main chamber, they found the pedestal that held the orb. It pulsed with an eerie light, and the crew exchanged uneasy glances. "Commander, the pedestal stopped glowing when we removed the orb," Rylan said, studying the room closely. "It's possible that it's activated by our presence. I'd like to see if I can find a power source here. It would be good to get more data on these symbols around us too." Chapter 12, Revelation. The atmosphere aboard the Starship Nova was tense. The mysterious orb, now housed in the ship's science lab, was the center of everyone's attention. Despite their best efforts, the crew still didn't fully understand its purpose or connection to the malevolent entity known as Korrath. The orb emitted a faint, pulsating glow, its energy readings fluctuating unpredictably. Dr. Meredith Chen watched over Jax Carter, who lay sedated on a medical bed in the ship's medical bay. His readings were stable, but the threat of Korrath's influence loomed over him like a dark cloud. Elara was still confined to her quarters, struggling with her own battle against the entity. Dr. Chen's thoughts raced as she awaited the arrival of the orb. "Maybe this orb holds the key," she murmured to herself, glancing at Jax. "If we can understand its connection to Korrath, we might be able to save them both." Moments later, 2 security officers entered the lab, carefully carrying the orb. They placed it on a pedestal beside Jax's bed, its glow casting eerie shadows on the walls. As soon as the orb was brought near, Jax began to shake violently. His body convulsed, and Dr. Chen's heart pounded in her chest. She quickly checked his vitals, her eyes wide with concern. "Hold him down," she ordered, and the security officers moved to restrain Jax. The convulsions grew more intense, and Jax's eyes flew open, glowing with an unnatural light. A guttural scream escaped his lips, and then, as suddenly as it began, the shaking stopped. Jax lay still, his breathing heavy but steady. Dr. Chen leaned over him, her voice soft but urgent. "Jax, can you hear me?" Jax's eyes fluttered open, the unnatural light fading. He looked around, disoriented before his gaze focused on Dr. Chen. I can hear you," he whispered, his voice hoarse. Dr. Chen sighed in relief. "Thank goodness, you're free from Korrath's influence." Jax nodded weakly. "The orb. It broke his hold on me. I need to speak with Commander Vance. I know what Korrath wants." Commander Vance and Ensign Rylan Trent were on the planet's surface, studying the ruins. The ancient symbols and structures around them were a testament to a once advanced civilization. As they explored the ruins, Vance's communicator beeped. "Vance here." "Commander," Dr. Chen's voice came through, filled with urgency. "Jax is awake. He says he knows what Korrath wants." Vance's eyes widened. "We're on our way back. Keep him stable." He turned to Rylan. "We need to get back to the Nova. Jax has information about Korrath." Rylan nodded, and they quickly made their way back to the landing craft. The journey back to the ship was filled with a sense of urgency. As soon as they docked, they headed straight to the medical bay. When they arrived, they found Dr. Chen standing beside Jax, who looked pale but determined. "Jax, what happened?" Vance asked, his tone both relieved and concerned. Jax took a deep breath, gathering his thoughts. "Korrath wants the orb destroyed. It's the power source that keeps the artifact imprisoning him operational. If it's destroyed, he'll be free." Vance's expression darkened. "Do you know anything about this planet? It's a desolate wasteland." Jax shook his head. "It's not the planet he cares about. There's a military installation there that had the means to imprison him. He wants to destroy it to eliminate any remaining threat to his freedom." Rylan frowned. "If we destroy the orb, Korrath will be unleashed. We can't let that happen." Vance nodded, his jaw set in determination. "We need to find another way. We have to understand this artifact and the orb better. Our priority is to ensure Korrath remains imprisoned and to free Elara from his influence." Dr. Chen placed a reassuring hand on Jax's shoulder. "We'll find a way, Jax. You're safe now, and we'll make sure Elara is too." Jax looked at Vance, his eyes filled with urgency. "Commander, we don't have much time. Korrath's influence is growing stronger. We need to act fast." Vance nodded. "We'll do everything we can. We'll start by analyzing the orb and the artifact in greater detail. We need to understand their connection and how we can use it to our advantage." The orb's mystery. As Dr. Chen continued to monitor Jax, she couldn't help but feel a deep curiosity about the orb. She called for the science team to run additional diagnostics on it. Holographic screens flickered to life around the orb, displaying streams of data and complex energy signatures. "Look at this," one of the scientists pointed out. "The orb's energy signature is not just stable, it's self-regulating. It's designed to maintain a certain threshold of power." Dr. Chen nodded, her mind racing. Could it be that this threshold is what keeps Korrath imprisoned? A delicate balance that, if disrupted, would set him free. The scientist frowned, contemplating the implications. "It's possible. We need to find a way to simulate the effects of this energy field on a smaller scale. Maybe then we can understand its mechanics." Dr. Chen agreed. "Do it. And also, we need to check if there's any way to isolate this energy. If we can replicate its properties, we might have a chance to counteract Korrath's influence." Elara struggled. Elara Kane paced in her quarters, the confined space feeling more and more like a prison. She could feel Korrath's presence pulsing within her, a dark, insidious force that sought to dominate her will. "You cannot resist me forever," Korrath's voice taunted. "The orb's power might have freed Jax, but you are different. You are stronger, more resilient. You can use this power to break free of these petty confines and take what is rightfully yours." Elara shook her head, refusing to give in. "I am not your puppet. I will find a way to rid myself of you." Korrath's laughter was cold and mirthless. "We shall see, Elara, we shall see. A plan forms." In the command center, Vance and Rylan were deep in discussion with the science team. The orb's readings were projected on a large screen, and the room buzzed with activity. "Commander, we've identified the key frequencies and energy patterns that the orb uses to maintain the prison," the lead scientist explained. "We think we can create a localized field that mimics its effects. If we can do that, we might be able to isolate Korrath's influence." Vance nodded thoughtfully. "Do it. And start preparing for a way to amplify this field to cover the entire ship if necessary. We can't afford any more surprises." Rylan chimed in. We also need to ensure that Elara is kept stable. If Korrath is pushing her to use his power, we need a way to counteract that. Vance turned to Dr. Chen, who had just entered the command center. Doctor, I need you to work with the science team on this. We need to ensure that Elara is protected. Dr. Chen nodded, her expression resolute. We've been working on a countermeasure, using the orb's energy patterns. It's risky, but it might just work. The battle ahead. As the crew of the Starship Nova prepared for the next phase of their mission, the weight of their task hung heavily over them. The fate of not just their mission, but potentially the entire galaxy, rested on their shoulders. Elara continued her internal battle, drawing strength from the knowledge that her crew was fighting for her. Jax, now free from Korrath's grip, offered his insight and expertise to the team. Vance and Rylan, their determination unshaken, led the charge to secure the ancient installation and prevent Korrath from unleashing his wrath upon the galaxy. In the science lab, the team worked tirelessly, analyzing every aspect of the orb and developing the countermeasures needed to protect Elara.